Is that I am Jeff Winkus. I am a regional sales rep for Lacrosse Seed. My phone number is 920-980-1625, and my email address is Winkus or jwinkus@laxseeds.com. If you have any questions, please ask them as we go through this. This is probably going to be the most informal. I've got a lot of information, but I'd rather you ask the question while we have it. We'll address it then. If questions occur after we're done with it and you forget to ask, please contact the people of Hohl's. They get a hold of me all the time. They're a very good distributor of ours, and we'll get it addressed that way. If you want to click that. So, Briar Ridge is our branded product. We also, Hohl's Farm Center has their own lineup too that accommodates our Briar Ridge lineup. Briar Ridge is a platform we work off of, we make our decisions off of, and that's where we get the science behind what we put in Hohl's too as we work on these mixes. It's a high quality professional mix from Lacrosse Seed. We're based here in Wisconsin. La Crosse, Wisconsin is our headquarters. We combined our seed expertise with with all the knowledge that we have behind us to get the competitive edge. So this is kind of cool because we don't pay this gentleman. We get these probably 10 times a year. Someone uses Briar Ridge product. We don't have them on the payroll. They send us a picture. This one came in out of our Iowa location. A gentleman was using Briar Ridge for years on end, actually shot this deer last year over one of our Briar Ridge mixes. And what he's stating is with great genetics and a great nutritional plan and a great food plot, you can get obviously monsters like that. And like I said, I know the picture, everybody's like, oh yeah, this was sent to us, we don't contract this guy. It was just sent in out of the blue. So what we do is I'm going to go through what we've seen and what we've done in our area of expertise to see a successful food plot. The number one thing for a successful food plot is if you want to move ahead, is to pick the right area. I know food plots are not science. I see so many people stamp a food plot out in the middle of a field or something like that. If your deer do not feel that they're protected, they will not come out and eat. They're no different than us. Will they eat on a cornfield? Absolutely. But when you're doing a food plot, you try to get it somewhere protected, inside edge, near a water source if possible. 40 to 50% light. When I say 40 to 50% light, 40% of the day to 50% of the day, we're getting some sunlight in there. Don't stuff it in the middle of the woods and with all tree cover and expect a seed to grow and grow well. Can we get some seeds in there? Absolutely. But we're going to have a lot of competition and a lot of things that beat us up to do so. Non-flood areas, just some not great conditions, but don't give us a million bad things to try to grow a food plot. It's not going to work, and you're going to beat your head into the ground, and you're not going to be very happy at the end of it. These are rules of thumbs. The other question I get always is, what is the greatest size of a food plot? You know, I have 9 acres. Should I put it all in food plot? Absolutely not. A 9-acre food plot doesn't help you any more than the guy's 150 acres of corn next to you does. So if you're going to do food plots and make them count for big bucks, drawing them guys in, you're going to want to look at a 1/4 acre to 1/2 acre. They feel more concealed in there, and you're not going to get 10 bucks eating on the same food plot. They just, yes, can it happen? Absolutely. Everybody's going to be, well, I saw it once. They don't like competition. They don't like to be herded up. Multiple areas, 2 to 5% of the property is what we're going in on there. Number of small plots do better than one large plot. It's more the number games. All right, if I have one large plot, I have to hit that guy, where if I have 5 small plots, I have a better chance of those deer running in. So mature bucks, as we've known, and we've got guys that look at this and study this quite regularly, don't like to come out with like I said, a herd. They usually are by themselves. The rut's different, obviously. They're chasing, but then we're not using the food plot to draw them in either. So the smaller the plot, the more cover we can get. So when we get into it later, we'll show that we can make false fencing to go along with a food plot to make it feel secure. We've got that in our portfolio to get tall enough stuff that goes around the edge of it so they feel secure no matter what. Because if a deer feels secure, it's going to stay. And this says over here, if your small food plots are getting overgrazed, you're having problems with them, and how you know this, everybody asks me, well, how do I know it's overgrazed or if it's just not coming? I always recommend this. When you put a food plot in, take a circle, fence it off. Just leave it, don't touch it. When it grows, you will know the management you need, because that piece will not be touched by the deer. You'll know how the deer population comes and goes. If that piece is 4 feet tall and the rest is mowed down, hey, you got a good thing going. If it's the same height as what you have the other, we got to look at what we need to do different to draw them in.
How big of a circle?
I mean, it's just a management. So, I mean, doesn't have to be a good percentage, like a ring around a tree. That's what I tell people. I mean, don't do it around a tree, but do it like a circle in the middle of the plot or in the side of the plot. Don't waste your majority of your plot, but that knows what's grazing, what's not grazing, because they're not going to jump in that circle. If you are getting overgrazed on these little ones, then maybe you have a larger food plot or a larger population than the average. So maybe we do need to go with a bigger food plot in the center of your property and let them graze that, and then hit the side ones when they're going to bed or getting nested in. That is all a management practice. There's nothing here. It's just like anything else we do. Doesn't matter farming. There's no silver bullet. There's no, this is the right, this is the wrong. What works for you guys, keep doing. We're trying to hit on what works in the Midwest in general. So the number one thing I cannot emphasize the most is when we start, soil sample. These guys, bring your soil in. They will do all your sampling for you. If you come to me and you say, my food plot didn't grow, the seed was junk, you know, first questions out of my mouth are going to be, what did your soil sample read? If you tell me, I didn't do a soil sample, I'm going to request that you do a soil sample before we go any farther, because if I can't rule that out, or you can't rule that out, we know nothing. So when you are doing your soil test, these are the guidelines I would like to see done. So soil test in the fall and early spring. Before previous residue starts to break down, because that'll mess with your fertilizer components. As it breaks down, nitrogen will get put back in the soils, but if it's usable or not. Be consistent on when you sample. Don't sample in the fall one year and then all of a sudden in the spring next year. It's all over the boards. We can't get a good guideline on that. If fertilizer has already been taken place on that acre or that food plot, you should wait 12 weeks, because that's going to throw off your soil test, obviously. You're going to see bad result or good results, and it might not be actually good results there. This is a no-brainer, but I hear it a lot. Use clean tools, pesticide-free, fertilizer-free buckets. I see a guy using a fertilizer bucket to sample food plots and putting all his soil in the fertilizer bucket. Okay, it can throw us off, will it? I don't know, but it's easy to just use clean tools, use clean stuff to report it. Take 6 to 8 cores from each food plot. Don't take them all in one corner, zigzag across it. Collect from the rule of thumb, from the top 3 to 5 inches of soil. Mix the cores up in a bucket so we know we get a consistent what the whole picture looks like. If I do one corner to the other, shouldn't be bad, but where I get it is, well, I did the quarter over by the pine trees, and the other side doesn't have pine trees. Well, I can guarantee the soils are different underneath that pine tree than they are sitting out in the middle. So just make sure you do yourself justice by getting an actual picture of what the food plot looks like. Rule of thumb, 2 to 3 years, every 2 to 3 years soil sample. If you do have pine trees in that area, you might have to go every year because pine needles just make it acidic and they mess with us all the time. So this is just a funny thing we always put in here. So if you don't do a soil test, it's like hunting with a blindfold on, taking a road trip without a map, or building a house without a plan. It's not going to come out well for you. So weed control. The presence of weeds means 2 things. So the pressure of weeds and brush in a food plot often indicate poor food plot management. So if we're not managing that food plot accordingly, our weeds are going to win out every time. They're natural to the soils. We're trying to put something in there that's not. When I say that, if we know there's weeds out there and they're getting up to this, don't let them go to seed head. Let's get out there, get after them. Not spraying always, but you can mow them off. If you keep them dormant, they don't go to seed head. They're not causing you the next problems. I know no one has weeds in the soil. It just comes in the bag always. But weed seed, I know. It always comes in the bag. Yeah, exactly. Weeds are cheap. No, so most weeds, I shouldn't say most, a lot of weeds out there that sit in the woodland can sit dormant for 50 years. So the deeper you go when you're tilling upland, the more you're bringing to the top, the more you're propping them up and ready to go. So if we know that our food plots are getting low, they're getting grazed off a little bit more, we gotta start managing that because that's going to become a problem too. It's just your weeds are going to take over. How we can do that is put another food plot in. If we don't have that acre to put the food plot in, manage what we can, fertilize a little bit more, get it into growth. Deer are no different than cows. We don't let our alfalfa get out to bloom. We don't do that because our alfalfa becomes out of feed quality. We can get a heck of a lot more bushel per acre, but we want it with quality. Deer plots are the same. Don't let your deer plot go to seed head. As soon as it goes to seed head, the plants in that food plot, now the feed value or the nutritional value for that deer goes away. So, as we all know, we do not sell chemicals as a company. Hohl has a full lineup of chemical. The broadleaf control that we see the most is 2,4-D. Non-selective herbicides are glyphosate with a sticker. I always put this in here. I think everybody use all chemicals according to label. Label is the law. No matter what someone tells you, the label in the state of Wisconsin and every other state is the law by the chemical company, and the chemical company will stand by it. So that is my recommendations on weed management. Just be smart about it. If you see it, be early and often, because once it gets ahead of you, the first thing you're going to want to do is start over, and that's never fun and never a time period to do so. So pH is one that we hear a lot about when we see our soil tests come back. Is pH high, pH low, pH neutral. Fall is the best time to boost our pH levels by applicating lime. It allows the soils to neutralize, take in for the 6 months. Some problem weeds, like acidic soils or alkaline soils, so we can take those out of the equation by just managing our pH. So this last one, has been added. It's more on a overseeding winter annuals, especially clovers, require a high pH for optimal growth in products, or in production, sorry. It's kind of going on the cover crop thing. The more we can get growing on that, the better. We don't have to start over next year. If we let our food plot, we all like to play with them, we all like annuals, but if we can keep something out there year round, we don't have to fight the next year to get our food plot back in on those, and we don't have to spray, I shouldn't say that, we shouldn't have to spray as much. It should manage itself with the clovers and be active against it. These are optimal pHs for the varieties or species that are listed here. If you know what you're looking at, if you got a pH off a little bit, like I said, we can play with it to get it back to where we need to, but that year it's not all lost. We can put species in there that will adapt to those pH levels. So seed bed prep. Go ahead.
What is the pH range? Isn't it 0 to 14? 7 neutral?
7's being neutral. 0 to 14, I believe, is the highest. I've never. But I don't think I've seen too many 14s around there unless you get maybe in the up north pines. I would say, and it's up here as you can see over here, what we like to see our food plot range sit in is 6 to 0 pH range. Or sorry, 6 to 7. 6 to 0 would be a huge window. We could do that every day. That's where we're hitting. If you want to go back to the top for the prep here. So when we're prepping a field or a food plot, the worst thing we can do is go out there and prep it like our garden and get it so all of a sudden we tilled it up so much that my foot can sink 2 feet into it. We're not wanting to do that. Like I said earlier, the deeper we go, the more we bring to the top. We just want it to look like our alfalfa fields. We're putting the same seeds agriculturally in the ground as we are with our food plots. So a quarter to an inch is the depth usually where those seeds sit. Depends on the species, depends on where we're going. When you're 2 foot and you can step out there, rule of thumb, if you can see your whole foot imprint and it sinks down in a good ways, we're too soft. We want that to be a tougher soil. We don't want to lose the seeds in there. There's too many things in nature that are already fighting us that we don't want our preparation to be one of those. And I would say that is the number one thing that we miss when we're doing it, is we go out there and we till it and till it and till it, and we throw the seed down and we never roll it, never get the soils tight again, and we come back and there's nothing but weeds there. Our seed is too deep. It's going to it could rot out. It's going to be gone before the rest gets a hold of it. Fertilization. Fertilization, it's no different than any other crop or your lawn. You get what you put in. So these guys have a great lineup of fertilization products out there. They're going to give you a recommendation off of your soil test, what you should be putting on there. That is what we should be doing right off the bat. We need to put a starter fert down to get our seeds out of the ground, no different than our crop. And I know it's probably, like I said, it's 101, so it's probably, you guys all know this, but it enables the plant to develop deeper and denser roots. It allows it to absorb more nitrogen. The more healthy we can get the plant, the more the plant will survive in the harsh wind. If you want to move it over. So the food plot building blocks are the N, P, and K. N, P, and K will be on every bag of fertilizer that comes out of the location. There'll be a number for every one of them. Like I said earlier, the optimal pH levels that we're looking for are 6 to 7. So if we do have a pH off, we would like to wait 4 to 6 months before seeding for the lime to neutralize the soils. So if we know when we're going to plant that, don't start the day that we want to plant. Start a couple weeks, a month or two before that. Go up to your property, get some soil tests done, and then come back and get that in plan. Because if you come to me and you're saying, well, pH is off, but I really got to go this weekend, we can do it, but you're not going to get your lime to work that fast. It's just not going to happen.
A question on
Yeah.
lime.
Yep.
Pelletized versus egg lime. I've read stories that it's like, okay, pelletized lime is supposed to act so much quicker and you don't need as much, and then I've read other things that say that's a bunch of BS. So what?
So I'm going to let you guys, you guys deal with it, Myron, more than I do on the lime side. I know what I've seen, but what would you say on that question?
Well, the pelletized is a lot quicker.
Yes.
It takes less, probably, but I don't know if they're both going to be 89. You got to look see how strong it is on both.
So I would agree. Pelletized, and not everything's equal with lime. You know, that's the problem. When guys say pelletized lime or barn lime, that's a big window. What the actual formulation of the lime is. So pelletized lime should go in faster, but it'll probably come out it's going to fluctuate more. So what I mean by that is you're going to get a year where your pH comes down, but it's not going to be a steady down. What goes in fast comes out fast. So you can have that problem if you need a quick fix, but we're trying to maintain this pH level. We don't want to pound it every year. We want to make sure that we can adjust it a little bit every year. So these are purely, and I every time I do this or get this presentation out, I take this slide out and put it back in, take it out, put it back in. So these are rules of thumb. If I can stress one thing, don't go off of rules of thumb. Go off of what we read on our soil samples. But if you're asking, well, what should it look like? Nitrogen, 3 applications of nitrogen at 50 pounds per acre per year is what the rule of thumb is. Phosphorus, 40 to 60 pounds per acre per year, or based on soil tests. Potassium, 250 to 300 pounds per acre per year, or based on soil tests. The soil test is the best way. It is the picture that tells you everything about your soils. These are recommendations for southeast Wisconsin. I mean, there's too many soil types to say that this is even a good recommendation. It's just when people are looking at stuff, that's what you should be using somewhat. So, mowing. So, how many here mow their food plot? Oh, okay. It's one thing that we miss. We need to manage our food plot. Now, like I said, you're going to know with that circle ring if the food plot itself is getting eaten off where we don't have to mow it. Great, it's managing itself. But we need to mow it exactly what I said earlier. Get the weeds. We don't want them to go to seed head. It's a beautiful seed base for another year worth of fighting weeds. The other thing is our plants out there, our grasses, our even our radishes and stuff like that, when they go to seed head, they're putting all their energy, taking it out of the bottom of the seed and putting it towards that seed. They're going into reproductive state. So all their energy is going to the top part, and they're losing feed value into their leaves. Your deer will go away. So mow it, keep our plots managed.
When you mow it too, it's good to have a rear discharge on your mower. If you have a side discharge, it'll pile it up and it'll build up seeding underneath there too. I got a blower mower that I use for alfalfa food plots, and then I use even a finishing mower too.
Okay.
Just to keep the weeds out of the
Yeah, you bring up a great point. We don't want to, if we let it get up to here, we don't want to go out there, mow it, and let it lay, because it's no different than we take a hay field and we cut it and we leave our windrows lay too long. You're going to see that hay die off and hurt itself because of the heat, moisture, and just the stuff that's going on underneath that.
Is a brush hog too harsh on it, or
No, I mean,
tear it up too much?
well, and like I said, you can use a brush hog, just don't. 6 inches is where we want to optimally be. Yeah, I mean, any more, even your lawnmower, I can go to your lawn and tell you if your blades are sharp because they'll rip your grass. And so anytime we can do our maintenance on our mowers, that's great. But like I said, don't scalp it, because say we have our radishes or our turnips in there. We don't want to be...
You mow the blends also.
Yeah. Yeah, because like I said, you want to manage your weeds that way and your radishes. So it's a little off topic, but so if you plant a radish, a daikon radish in spring of the year, and then you plant a daikon radish at the fall of the year, they will act completely different. Same species, same everything. In the spring of the year, that radish will go right to seed head. It will go, you'll see a beautiful purple flower come out of the radish, and it won't put much of a tuber down. If you plant that radish, that same radish, in the fall of the year, it'll put a tuber down, and it'll go, usually, so radishes kill off at the first sign of frost, but we need about 30 days before that frost line to do that. That's a lot of the species we deal with in cover crops, is we need to know the planting window. We don't want to throw them all out there together. We want to be planting them at the right time, or we're going to be hurting ourselves. Now, if you take that same radish and you mow it, it's going to keep growing its top. But if you mow it too much, you're going to kill it off too. That's why I say 6 inches. We don't want to be whacking and taking the top off the crown or the plant or the top of the tube.
Radishes in the spring and mow them, would they still develop a bulb for the winter time?
So yeah, so they're still gonna come in and they're gonna develop a bulb later. So sheep farmers do this a lot. They use radishes, turnips, and stuff like that, and they'll graze the tops, and that actual bulb will come later if they let the top grow. Otherwise, it keeps. So how a plant is working, it's just no different than a grass. If you take away the water source on a grass or the sunlight on the grass, it's going to grow as fast as it can upward, because it's going to go for sunlight. And it'll probably lose itself on the root base. Turnips and radishes are the same way. Any daikon or any brassicas, if you cut the top, they're going to keep growing their top. They're going to keep wanting to regrow. Now, if you take too much of it off, whack it off, it's a dead plant.
Let it grow to 12 inches, 14 inches, and then take it down to 6 inches, or not even that?
And so the brassicas are going to be the slower ones. So I would say, if you let your brassicas go in spring to 12 inches, they're going to go to bloom. They're going to go put a seed head out there. So, like I said, once you start seeing those flowers, if you've got a brassica mix and you see flowers popping up, you're going to have some that get more excited than others, and they might go to flower a little earlier. But if you see 20% out there go to flower, get out there and mow it. So, frost seeding, we get this question quite a bit. Frost seeding or slash dormant seeding, whatever you want to look at. Legumes and grass is an effective way to improve food plot yields. It's a great way to get ahead of our weeds in the spring of the year. This is not a 100% process. This year, if we would have frost seeded last year, we probably would be kicking ourselves right now. We didn't have a snow cover all winter long. We got it now. We've got rain sitting out there. We've got a lot of things that happen from point A to point B. You probably would have had a unsuccessful frost seed or dormant seed last fall. That's not saying one won't work. The cool part about frost seeding is you get the best of everything. So if we do get this good snow cover, there's more nutrients in that snow sitting out there. When it came down, it took nitrogen out of the air. It took a lot of things out of the air. It's sitting there. When it melts off, it's giving our seeds nutrition back. It's giving them moisture back. It's giving everything back into the soils. I like, if you're going to frost seed, I lean heavily towards the clovers. They're more forgiving. They're just an easier thing to frost seed, and the seed size is smaller. So on the frost seed world, what we're looking to do is when the cracks in the frost open up and shut, we want our seed to be falling in those cracks. So it's no new system to us. We do it a lot. Michigan does it a lot over their wheat products or wheat fields. They'll frost seed clover into the top. So 2 years ago, when we didn't get a frost and you frost seeded, it's just throwing seed on ground. We got to have those cracks open up and close. That's what frost seeding wins and when it doesn't. Frost seeding is considered anything seeded after the soil temps go before 40 degrees. Nothing will grow in soils that are below 55 degrees Fahrenheit. 55 is what the universities all say is the standard soil temperature that we need to grow a crop. So we don't want it to germinate that year. It's not considered a frost seed if it germinates that year and goes in. Then it's just a seeding that never got large enough to go in. If we are going to take that gamble and we want something going into the next year, we want growth on that, I say 3 to 6 inches before we hit that the dormant section. If you want to move it over. This is pretty much what frost seeding, one thing we always touch on, if you have minimal equipment to do it, it's nice. A lot of companies, we don't have one per se, and I don't think you guys, what they consider a throw and go. That's what they kind of are going for, is the frost seeding. Throw and goes are to get you to spend your money. If you're going to spend the money on the seed, the preparation's easy. I mean, if you got a rake in your hand, you can do better than a throw and go. I mean, it's so. This is kind of an easy way to get it in there. If we're going to do it, if you're going to spend your money on a throw and go, I would try frost seeding first. So
no tillage or anything, just simply apply it.
So what happens there is you're going to go out there, you're going to terminate whatever is out there. So you're going to use a non-selective herbicide, spray it down, and then you're going to put it over the ground. No tillage, nothing wrapped up. You're basically relying on those cracks to suck it down in, let our soils move, and bring it down to the thing. This is a no-brainer. I know you guys can't see it very well. It's just showing a poor stance and a good establishment. These are both on the same farm, same mix. It's just this one got rain, this one didn't. So, we're gonna spend a little bit of time just going through what the Briar Ridge brand or what's all in our mixes, straight varieties and what's in the mixed varieties. So this is another deer that we got sent in. This is in up by the Appleton area. Guy shot a trophy buck off of Bullseye Forge turnips. So one of those fun guys that send us pictures in. So
I saw that one in the zoo.
yeah. Well, I didn't say where he shot it. These are our straight varieties. What we have to offer in straights. If you want to go ahead. Bullseye deer turnips. So the Bullseye deer turnips is a mix of 3 turnips in one bag. It gives you a variety, a bulb size, bulb shape. What we're going to get versus just planting the purple tops. It does, the bullseyes come in a 2-pound package. It's the only way you can get them. And 2 pounds of bullseye turnips do a half acre. They need to be planted 60 days before the first killing frost. Bullseye turnips, another thing on the turnip world is the deer might not hit them, might be away from them a little bit. As soon as they freeze, deer are going to go after them. All the sugars in that turnip are going up to the top. It's no different than sugar beets, radishes. They all go to the top. As soon as those freeze off, that's when the deer really hammer them. So.
It's a good spring planting if you're going to plant this in the fall.
So you guys in your Hohl's fall mix, that doesn't have any turnips in it, does it? I don't have. Okay. Yep. Yep. So now, are you looking at? Do you do yours annually or perennial? Annually. Okay. So if you're looking at annual, you can start with the clovers earlier, like the clover base. You know that's a forage mix, but ours is horn honey clover. So any of the clover mixes you could put down first, and then plop radishes back in it. Put absolutely not. No, plop them back in. Depends on the tools you have when you put those back in. You could, if you have, I know there's brilliant, plop them back in, rip it up a little bit, punch them back in. Otherwise, in the small spots or what didn't take, put them back in there. But they'll fight through and they'll get it. Turnips, as you can see, are really small seed. That's why 2 pounds does an acre. I always tell people, use some sort of bind. You know, I was like, how do I get this over a half acre? Use a binder, like a silicon sand, lime, whatever, just to make it a bigger amount and get it evenly spread across. So. Deer candy sugar beets. The sugar beet world, deer candies are, the deer like them. The thing with the sugar beet world, if you've ever seen a sugar beet seed, it can kind of be a pain to plant. It looks nasty. I mean, it's not round. It's got every triangle whatsoever. So we have to make sure when we plant these that we get good to seed soil contact with these. This is probably something we're not going to enter back in broadcast spread. It's just not going to go as planned. That seed is not round. It's ugly and it doesn't do the well. The deer candies provide good nutrients in the fall and early winter. Like I said, early winter, all the sugars are going to be going to the top of that bulb. We've got a ton of pictures of deer with the bulb in their mouth walking around. They love them. They'll pull them out of the ground and eat them all day long. These are all great add-ons. So if you do plant a perennial, or if you do plant something and you want to plug and play still, you want to play with your food plot, but you don't want to fight the weeds, these are great add-ons. So they're gonna fall in the same category. Any brassica, you're gonna be wanting to be about 60 days before that killing frost. So to keep them in there, can you plant them before that? Absolutely, but you're in it with no management. That's where we're gonna be looking at is 60 days before. These are something, and I think you got. This is in our presentation. You guys have soybeans here. We have a G21 forage soybean. It's an 8846. Nothing special about it. It's a glyphosate tolerant soybean. It's available out here. We added this to our cycle last year. I'm still torn on planting soybeans as a food plot because there's so many soybeans out there that you guys do for cash crop that they do eat it. Don't get me wrong, I see them eat it all the time. But I don't know if they're going to pass up a 100-acre field for your half-acre food plot. So.
I planted forage soybeans before, and you have a lot of deer in your area, and it's a small food plot, the deer will just shear them all off. You end up tilling it up and putting it in the fall mix or fall rye and then too. Same thing with a corn food plot.
Yeah.
It's small, it's hidden, deer are going to wipe that out before they get to the big fields because they feel safe there.
Or the raccoons.
Yeah, or sand up cranes or whatever.
We had a guy plant soybeans, and he did like a slow rotation camera on it, and literally we watched one deer go up and down the alley and just pick them right off. I mean, they weren't that far off the ground. He swore to God, them beans never came up. Never came up. And we went back and looked at the video. Yep, went right down and down, and he was gone. Plot spike oats. So plot spike, any forage oat, you know, the plot spikes are 99% pure, no filler, no chemical coating. It's a huge quality thing. What's nice about plot spikes, if you have an area where it's just not the best, you know, we were trying to prep it, but we want some stuff to feed first, put your oats out there. Your oats, they're going to be your cheapest cover crop. These, the plot spikes, or the forage oats, they're going to be more cold tolerant. They're going to go a little longer. They're still going to die. They are not going to overwinter. But they do a huge thing for our soils too. If we till them back in, it's green manure. So if we know we just want to get something out there to kind of control our food plot and we don't want to plant until later, plant these. They're cheaper thing. And then come back in and plant our others behind it. So this is kind of a management tool. You can put them out there too. I mean, I'm not just pitching and telling them that they have to be early. You can put them out there later, and deer will mow them down for sure. So
Just to play that back, you plant those in spring,
yeah,
mow them in August and put in the turnips?
yeah, and turnip mix, exactly. So you can come in, and it might be that the deer have hammered them enough that they're gone. I mean, and if you got a few in there, I wouldn't say spend too much time beating them up and trying to get out of there. Plant right into them. Use them, leave them there. They're going to die, and then come back next year and use your food plot accordingly. So this is one of those wildlife grain sorghum. So it's a grain sorghum. It's a dwarf sorghum. This is developed. A lot of pheasant farms use wildlife grain sorghum. There's two ways you can get wildlife grain sorghum. You can get wildlife grain sorghum straight, and then you can get it with a now I'm going to draw a blank, a chemical on it that you can use a pre-emergent called Dual before planting. In our world, wildlife grain sorghum, you're probably not going to spray it. A lot of pheasant farms do, so they'll buy. But if you do want that stuff with the protectant on it, you need to order early, because once they coat it, that's all they coat. That's it. Wildlife grain sorghum, when we use it in the deer plot world, we're making that fence. We're trying to make them deer feel comfortable. That's going to get, it's a dwarf, so it'll get about 5 to 6 feet tall. Put a grain head on and sit out there. They, like I said, the pheasants, the ducks, the birds really like that. It's a sorghum. Sorghums are really drought tolerant. They do amazing in really terrible conditions. And a lot of sorghum and a lot of is grown in the Nebraska, Dakotas area. Wildlife sunflowers. This is another one. It's more on the, so this is, we sell a Paradovic. The wildlife sunflowers are the Paradovic. They put a nice head on. It's going to be more on the bird side, but it does do that protection field around it. They get nice and big. It gives you the protection around your field. So Here is the Briar Ridge mixes. So, Habitat Hideaway is the exact, now this is the annual version of Habitat Hideaway. This is the fence. This is exactly what we're going to be talking about when we put up the fence. So it has sunflowers in it, it has wildlife grain, it has grain sorghum in it, and it has sorghum sudan in it. So that mix is going to get 6 to 8 feet tall. That's going to be a beautiful buffer around your plot. If you can't get the plot right down in the middle, but you need to make a buffer, this is what I want you to be using. I've got a guy that put this about 5 or 6 rows out on Main Highway, and the deer come right behind it. They don't even notice the cars coming up and behind it. They're not bugged by them at all. They're protected. It's no different. I mean, in the middle of a cornfield, you see deer come flying out of there all the time because they're protected in there. So the height is going to be the same thing. It is an annual. It's going to be gone next year, so you do have to plant this every year. Shade tolerant. So your sorghums and your sorghum sedans are very shade tolerant. They're pretty forgiving. Like I said, they are pretty for. I've had guys grow it in woodlands. I will say this: it does need sunlight, yes, but it will. You can get away with a lot of things on that. The sunflowers, they're up and down. I've seen success and fall off with that. So.
Does that stand up real well the winter snows? Can you put that in there for years?
So it will. Like I said, the sorghum's in there. Depends on how tall they get. The taller they get, the more likely they are to lodge. A sorghum's supposed to, I mean, we're using a forage sorghum, and we're not cutting it in the dough stage. So once it gets too big, it will fall down. But it does fall, I mean, it does hold up to a point. So.
You use all one straight blend, so there's not different heights of, I understand there's different heights of sorghums you can get to help support each other.
So, exactly. So we use different sorghum. So we're using a sorghum in there, a forage sorghum in there, and then we're using a sorghum sudan in there. So a sorghum sudan is going to be more of a grass stalk, and it will do exactly what you're saying. It will come up there and it will support it a little bit. But once that gets 8 foot tall, when we get some winds out there, and we get a good enough heavy snow, doesn't matter what we got out there, it's going to bring it down.
What about spacing? How do you recommend planting?
So, I mean, most of the stuff that we have, we plan people to broadcast it. As you can see, if you want to go, can we go back? I don't know.
So with a grain drill.
It's going to be hard to get it through a grain drill because you have a BB, and the sunflowers are going to throw you the biggest curve because they're the big seed. So if you can find a plate to go through that grain drill, I had some guys do some sunflowers. I can't remember what the plate they were, and every seeder is going to be different. So even if I remember the plate, they got it to go through pretty decent, but they weren't dealing with the other stuff too. So I always, broadcast is the best way. We're not looking at a perfect science here by any means. If we get a somewhat of a stance, that's great, you know. So, and most of the time on that stuff, like I said, as long as I don't want you drilling it too deep. On forage sorghums and stuff like that, we get too deep in them, and then it takes too long to get them out of the ground.
Yeah, how wide of buffer are you running?
So I always say if we can do 4 foot, I like that, but I understand most people don't have, if they don't have that large of one, 3-4 passes around, you know, just enough. Depends on where we are too. If we're right next to the highway, I want a bigger buffer. I want more noise, more tolerant. If we're out in the back edge of the woods, but you can still see people, heck, you could do 1 row around there, and they're going to feel comfortable. Like 1 pass, I should say, 1 pass. So if you did a 4-row corn planter, and I know we just talked about going to corn planter, but if you took a 4-row corn planter and run 1 strip around it, it would be fine. That sorghum sudan really gets bushy, and it can grow up, you know, we don't see it grow up because we take multiple cuts off in a hay field, but if we let it grow up, it'll grow quite a bit, and that gets bushy, leafy, and bushes out, and then you got the tall the forage sorghum that's going to go up and drop its leaves off too. So it's going to put a pretty big bush.
Obviously something you wouldn't mow.
No, exactly. You would have a hard time doing it. You couldn't. I mean, once it got up there, your brush hog would have a hard time getting across that because it's forage sorghum is just like a corn crop without the corn head. So it's going to have that big stalk on there. And Nebraska, they have a boatload of it. So.
Broadcast seeding, spreading it, and you recommend like a cultipacker to
Roll it in, yes. Yeah. Anytime we can roll after seeding, it's best. I mean, then we're pushing that seed down. We're getting, so the best thing to it, seed to soil contact. We want to see our seed hit that soil so we don't have that buffer zone in between it. So when we can push it down, we can get the best out of it.
Can you buy that in smaller quantities or what quantity bags?
So bag size 10 pounds right now. 10 pounds per acre. Yep, no, absolutely.
Next question,
Yeah.
what's it cost?
So,
Looking at your sheet, I don't see that.
yeah, and these, so I have all the costs on these. These are newer mixes, and these are add-ons to the Hohls. Like I said, they don't, so they have the Hohls mix and then the Briar Ridge. I can get you, or we should have a cost back there, but I'll get you a cost right after here, so. So this is the annual.
if you need to ask you, don't
No. It's actually, you know, it's going to be a reasonable. It's not a over-the-top price product. So. So, so we can incorporate it if we can. Otherwise, you know, burn it, get it off. However, you can get it off the field. Yeah, if you can, disc it down. It's going to break down. Otherwise, like I said, if you can, it's going to die off. It's going to get stocky. If you can burn it, it should burn down. But a lot of that will decay back in the soil. Now, is it going to take a little longer? It's a corn crop, so the carbon nitrogen ratio is going to help. But if you have to take it off, we're not putting a whole. Well, we're not expecting to put a whole field of it. I wouldn't recommend. You're not going to get deer drawn in because of this. You're just using that to present it. So, yes, we're going to have to look at how we're going to get it off. If we have to cut it, remove it, and take it into the woods or whatever and throw it. Or if you can till it down, it will break down. Like I said, it is a.
spring problem is brittle enough that you can use your brush hog on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be in the spring. If we get a winter where we get some snow, they're going to be folded over, and you can run your brush hog over it. Yeah. So.
I'm in the same problem too. I plant a lot of fall rye.
Yeah.
And the key with the fall rye is that you just, in the spring, it's nice because it's the first thing that greens up and the deer are going to have something to eat on it right away. But what I do is just keep mowing it, and eventually the stalk gets thinner and thinner. If you let it go to seed, then you got a big mess with the thatch. What you're going to do is you're going to burn it off, or you can't bale it, or the way you do it. It takes a lot of tractor work. So best if you keep mowing it, and then I'll till it like in like late June or July. And then before I prep it for usually planting the first week of August, depending on what I'm putting in.
Yeah, and we have, on the fall rye side, we have more information than we want on the termination. The University of Wisconsin, Dan Smith, did an intensive study on how to terminate fall rye. So if we're looking to terminate fall rye on the backside, you're 100% correct. Do not let go to boot stage. We do not want to see that flag out there because then it's harder to terminate. But if we get out there early, any of your glyphosate products will terminate that really easy and then till it back in or crimper roll it. And I know a lot of people don't have a crimper roller, but if you have anything that can crimp, get that vein to die out fall rye, it will be gone for us. But it is a great weed suppressor. If you have a field...
A lot of people have access to a no-till drill will drill right into it.
Absolutely. Yep. In the organic world, fall rye is the option for weed suppression on their soybeans. So as the university has done a lot of studies with the fall rye, they will actually go in with a no-till drill, open up, and they'll plant their soybeans right into a crimped row of fall rye. So there's a lot of fun things we can play with around with cereal rye. The If you have a bad experience with fall rye, you will hate fall rye though. If you let it go to boot stage, it can get away from you. So, Buck's Banquet, it's one of our mixes here. We got a few bags here to show. It's a clover chicory purple top. It's a mix that we bring in everybody. I would say this is one of our more popular selling mixes. And it covers the whole round. So this is a new mix that we bought out this year, and it's purely an annual. It's kind of so. This is what we did for our pitch at a throw and go, if you want to say it. But I don't like that terminology. I still think it can work. So this is going to be plot spike oats, 90% plot spike oats, purple top turnips, and soils first radish. It's an easy mix to start with. Everything is going to die. You're not going to have anything to deal with on the backside. It's a pure annual. Broadcast on, you're looking at 40 to 50 pounds. It's kind of what we're talking about putting oats on. This is just doing it later. So here's our clover mix. It's horn honey clover. It is, so if we're looking to get a perennial that we can play with, clovers are our go-to if you are having a hard time planting a food plot. If you're having a hard time getting it established, clovers are very forgiving. They work very, very well. Trails inside mix, our horn honey is going to do so. It's 10 pounds per acre. It comes in a 10 pound and a 5 pound bag. So, Rotten Ready is kind of our Brassica. It's not kind of. It is our Brassica mix. So it's made up. It's a pure annual. This is an add-on mix. So if you were playing with something and you wanted to add a Brassica, here's what we would add into it: is the Rotten Ready. And we'll skip over the Deer Country Point Builder and the field. The trail mix is one. It's clover mix. It's inside the wood lanes. Deer, if you got logging trails and stuff like this, this is an awesome mix for it. I have a lot of guys do it. They put drilled on here. You can drill it, absolutely. It's small enough seed. But most of the cases where I see going into that land, you're 15 to 20 pounds broadcast. So this isn't the food plot. This is a bedding section. So we get all the questions about, I want big blue stem, I want switchgrass, I want Indian grass, I want it straight, and I want all that. Habitat Hideaway is our mix. It's going to be nice. It's the three of them put together, a third, big blue stem, Indian grass, and switchgrass. It's going to give you that nice bed down area. They're pretty easy to establish, but they are a native grass. So we are probably not putting them in the best of situations, and we have to manage these accordingly. It's not throw it out there, leave it out there. It's going to grow up and be your own. You're going to have to make sure we cut this, make sure we put it out there and get it. This will also make a good buffer zone if we're worried about getting rid of it. This is going to be a perennial buffer zone. So 8 to 10 feet tall. I would say that's the 10 foot's on the high end. The 8 foot is even on the high end. I would say you're probably going to get hit by, most of the time. Snow-wise, if we get a good amount of snow, it's going to put it down. It's still big blue stem Indian grass. They have the pioneers, but anybody been pheasant hunting, we've been through it. So it does a good job on that. So Sugar Seeds Sweet Spot. This is a fun mix to play with. They have a lot of stuff in this mix. It's a perennial. it has something different than most of your deer plots mixes have. They have perennial rye in here. That's a high sugar perennial rye. So your high sugar perennial ryes are going to be your perennial of it. Now you have some brassicas in here that are going to be annuals, but this is a set mix where you're going to kind of be hands off after we get it going. You still can play around. You can put some turnips back in. You can put your annuals back in. But that clover or that perennial rye is the majority of it, and it's going to take over. I know of quite a few fields, my boss being one of them in Mosinee, that has Sucreseed sweet spot in it. And the deer will actually paw, and they were this year, pawing up to get the grasses because they keep the sugar and the carbon or the carbohydrates in them. So it's cool. Now you can get just the grasses too. Forage sweetener, it's on our forage side. We have that here. You guys stock that here. If we want to play around with that, we just have the grass part of it too, and you can buy the mixes and play. So. Just some more pictures of deer that we get sent in, and then the last one, more pictures on it. So thank you guys very much for your time. I hope that if you guys have any questions, you please ask them, and if something comes up, definitely let us know. That is everything we have. We will be, as we can see in the crosshairs, we'll be going up on the Hohl's website when we get it done. That's our end of it, but there'll be a link to that. Also, if you go to Hohl's website, they're going to have all the food plot stuff on there, and then they'll have a link to our website too. Everything that you see on there is available through these guys. So don't hesitate. If you want something, definitely ask.
Thanks for watching. Visit us today at Hohl's Farm Supply, located on Highway 33 between Baraboo and Portage. Open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can call us at 608-356-3195 or visit us on the web at holsfarmsupply.net.